What if the secret to feeling more hopeful isn't pretending everything is fine? What if it's learning how to face what's hard with more tools, more courage, and a better question? Is this a problem to be solved or a truth to be accepted? Stay tuned. Hi, everyone. I'm Barbara, and this is Age Better. Thank you so much for being here, and a special welcome to anyone who is new to the show. Please take a moment to follow or subscribe, maybe leave a review, and send me your ideas for future episodes to agebetterpodcast@gmail.com or reach out on social media. So today we're talking about optimism, not the fake kind, not toxic positivity, not pretending everything is okay when it isn't. My guest is Dr. Sue Varma, a board-certified psychiatrist, clinical assistant professor of psychiatry at NYU Langone Health in New York City, and author of the wonderful book, Practical Optimism, The Art, Science, and Practice of Exceptional Well-Being. I love the name of that book. Dr. Varma has spent years helping people understand how to manage stress, uncertainty, anxiety, grief, and change, and how to move forward with more hope and more action. And this conversation feels especially important for women in our 60s and beyond because this stage of life brings so much possibility, but also a lot of change. Our roles shift. Our relationships change. Our work may change. Our bodies are definitely changing. Our sense of purpose may need to be rebuilt. And many of us are asking, what do I want this next chapter to look like? Well, Dr. Varma helps us understand that optimism is not simply something you're born with. It is something you can learn and then practice. We talk about purpose, processing emotions, fear, self-compassion, loneliness, connection, and the small daily habits that help us feel more grounded and more hopeful. And she shares practical tools you can use right now, especially if you're feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or unsure about what comes next. There will be links to Dr. Varma's book and all of the great work that she's doing in the show notes, so definitely take a look after you listen to this really great conversation. Okay, everyone, get ready to age better. Dr. Sue, welcome to Age Better.
Thank you. So great to see you, Barbara.
I'm so happy about this book, Practical Optimism. It is a wonderful, wonderful book. Highly recommended, everyone. And there will be links to the book and to everything that Dr. Sue Varma is doing in the show notes. So don't forget to check that out after you've listened to this conversation. So, Dr. Sue, let's talk about practical optimism. It is different, according to your book, very different than that kind of toxic positivity. What is the difference?
So toxic positivity wants us to kind of gloss over the hard times, and it says everything will get better. And there are definitely well-intentioned people in our lives who are like, you're going to make it through. When someone tells you just get over it or just look on the bright side, that is toxic positivity to me. Optimism, and specifically practical optimism, hopes for this idea that you can turn positive outlooks into positive outcomes through action. So that is where the practical part comes in, because it is not just saying, look on the bright side, without understanding the depths and the gravity of what someone has been through.
My audience, primarily women in their 50s, 60s, and beyond, we're very focused on our health, on our well-being. How will we be aging? Will we fight frailty? Are we going to be fighting off Alzheimer's? We're thinking deeply about all of this. So why is this stage of life so important, midlife and beyond, to really embrace the concept of practical optimism? Why?
So there is so much science that optimism not only extends our life. So first of all, get this, optimists live longer, 10 to 15% longer than their pessimistic counterparts. We know that optimists are 30% less likely to have heart attacks, 30% less likely to have strokes, less depression, less anxiety, better relationships, stronger and longer relationships. And that's so important because so many women are going to spend the last decade of their life in poor health. So we're not just looking at a longer life, because what good is a longer life if it's not a healthier life, right? The optimists, not only do they have better dental health, they have better mental health. They're more likely to exercise. They're less likely to smoke. They're more likely to exercise regularly with friends, with a strong social support network. So they really do go out of their way, not just in habits, but in the way that they approach life, right? So they say, all right, well, what do I need to do? So there's a certain persistence, there's a certain grit. I call it when hope marries action, right? Like, so they're both very important because hope is not just a noun to me, hope is also a verb, right? Like, what are you doing? What's the work? How are you going to persevere? When I think about aging and aging well and what you're talking about, yes, there's a lot of fears. And we want to confront those on two fronts. We want to say, okay, well, let's reframe the fear, right? What is within your control? And then what behavioral small action plans can you start integrating today in your life right now? How do we do it in a way that honors our dignity and preserves strength, flexibility, mobility, and functioning for as long as possible?
I like to say that I popped out very optimistic. Like, I'm a happy person. I was a happy kid. I've been told that by many people. Everything was kind of glass half full. And that is who I am. I'm wired that way. But there are some people who just feel, well, I'm not wired that way. People can really learn how to be more optimistic, right?
Yes, absolutely. I always joke, I'm like, it's the optimists that are often married to the pessimists, right? And we need, yeah. And we need both. There is a quote that I love. It says, the optimists build the planes and the pessimists build the parachutes, right? And you can see that we need them both.
I love it.
And the reality is that for all those cynical pessimists out there, we love you. I have definitely a streak of that in myself, which is why I feel like this book was so important for me to write, because I wanted people to know that just because your mind, my mind, tends to go to worst case scenario, to catastrophe, that I have learned techniques to say, what's the evidence for it, right? What is the cost and the benefit of thinking this way? How can I separate the way that I'm thinking into what we call productive anxiety and unproductive anxiety? And these are things that can be learned. And it's so important what you said, that you're wired this way. And I love the optimists, right? I'm married to one who are just born always thinking and hoping and wishing and able to execute positive things in big part because of the way that they think, right? Like if you think things are going to work in your favor, you're not going to give up. And therefore they do work in your favor because you make it happen.
Eventually.
Yes, eventually. And that part, like self-efficacy, is one of the pillars that I talk about. In my book, I call it proficiency, but it's one of the 8 pillars of practical optimism. But to go back to your questions about how some people are genetically wired, we found in 2011, there was a study that said that there is absolutely a genetic component to optimism, that people who are natural born optimists tend to do certain things more often. They seek social support. They tend to think more positively. So I realized, okay, so if those are things that optimists are doing, is there a way that the rest of us can learn from it, right? And then I realized so much of what I do in therapy as a psychiatrist with my patients is teaching them these skills. Well, then you know what? The rest of us can learn, right? So there is a genetic tendency. If you're not born with this oxytocin receptor gene, it's called, with a certain variant, you might be more likely to slip into pessimism and cynicism. But if you were to think of it as a practice, and I think of practical optimism as a practice, some days it's a 5-minute practice, some days it's longer, but it's like learning how to ride a bike or to do yoga or learning a new language or playing an instrument. It takes effort. When the mind wants to go to what is the worst case scenario, ask yourself, what is the best case scenario? And then ask yourself, what's the most likely scenario? And can I handle it, right? Because so much of anxiety, which is what happens in pessimism, is you overestimate the magnitude of the problem and you underestimate your ability to deal with it. And so practical optimism says, let's look at it from both sides. Let's change our risk assessment and threat assessment in the situation. Is it as dangerous? Is it as likely the bad thing that I'm thinking is going to happen? And then how do I beef up my own ability to deal with the situation? So there's both parts of it. One is the thinking and the other part is the doing.
So you mentioned your 8 pillars, which is, of course, in the book. Let's talk about one of the P's, and that's purpose. Purpose is so important. I think it's important
Absolutely.
throughout life, of course, but it's so important to this age group. So how can we find purpose? Let's talk about that pillar.
Yes. So purpose is the first pillar, and for a reason, because I think of purpose as simply having intention, having clarity, being very clear and deliberate about what it is that you want to accomplish. And the 8 pillars, the 8th one is practicing healthy habits, but really it is just the execution of whatever goal that you want in your life. So it starts with purpose and it ends with execution. And in between are all the things in life that would present themselves as obstacles. For example, emotions, negative emotions, problem solving, things that would present as real obstacles and how you get through them, right? So purpose is what is it that you're trying to accomplish in that moment? So that's the little p of purpose. And it's really important to every day have a small goal, something that you're trying to figure out, some challenge that you're trying to navigate. There's something called challenges of choice. And you could decide, okay, I want to get better at fill in the blank. Everybody's playing mahjong, I hear, right? So first it was pickleball, now there's mahjong. But you're like, I want to get better at climbing. For me, it's strength training. I want to, every time I go to the gym, every week, I want to add a couple, 2 pounds, 5 pounds, and whatever, just having goals. So purpose is about populating your calendar with activities that bring you pleasure, meaning, and joy. And something I read this morning, and it really stuck with me, it was like, okay, we know that women outlive men by X number of years, right? They were saying 5 years. But they said no one's interested in trying to figure out why, right? Or how, right?
Yes, I saw that.
And I think it's because women have a very strong sense of purpose and that they often turn their purpose to caregiving, to friendship, to community in a way.
It's very often socially connected. Like that's one of the reasons, I think.
And I think that's something, not to stereotype, but when I look at my male patients, when I look at the men that I know in my life, one of the things that they're not as good about is that community piece, right? And if they are left widowed or divorced, they are suddenly without purpose. And that is such a key component in either good mental health and in longevity. Purpose is very protective. People who have a sense of purpose live longer. They also have less strokes, less heart attacks, and people with a sense of purpose are more likely to exercise. And if you don't have a sense of purpose, go out and exercise. Exercise gives you a sense of purpose. So go for a brisk 15-minute walk. You're going to come back and feeling like, oh my God, I can tackle anything, right? So purpose boosts your productivity and vice versa. So I just think of it as a wellspring of so many things.
To me, the takeaway is that having a life day in and day out, like daily, of little P's is so important. Your purpose doesn't have to be this mission in life, like I'm going to save the world. Your life can just be filled and be fulfilling with a bunch of little P's in your life, right?
Totally. The minute you start to feel like there's something missing, it doesn't have to be grand. Your purpose doesn't have to be something that other people understand. It doesn't have to even be compensated. It just has to be something that you derive meaning and pleasure from. I think it's important for people to maybe mourn or grieve the loss of one purpose, right? Because your purpose changes just as you do, and different seasons in your life, they will have a different purpose. And I think it could be hard if somebody lost a job or if somebody retired or if they lost a relationship, whatever it was, where your identity came from, right? Because a lot of times purpose and identity fuse and we feel like our identity is our purpose and vice versa. And we can separate the two and say, okay, well, I can still find identity in other things, in habits that I create, in the small everyday moments of peace.
Another pillar I really want to talk about is processing emotions. We're very good, I think, a lot of us at functioning, right? And taking care of everyone else and sometimes pushing our own emotions and how we're feeling about things aside, but like putting everyone first. So how do we get started with that processing our emotions so they're a little more free?
There's a lot of data behind people when they suppress their emotions, they're more likely to get coughs, colds, infections. Wound healing is delayed, right? So if you have a biopsy, it's going to take longer to heal from it. I have a 4-step plan. It is very simple. And it starts with, I call it name it, claim it, aim it, and reframe it. So first of all, it starts with identifying the trigger, because so many of us will say, like, I don't have any problems or everything is fine, is because we're suppressing our emotions. Everything is not fine, right? The person, we waited online at the DMV for 2 hours only to find the window shut by the time we get there, or there was one wrong form, or somebody steps on your toes, or cuts you off in traffic, right? So these little things, microaggressions, if you will, they happen all day long to us and we feel slighted. Your body will express what your mind cannot. So naming the antecedent, naming the trigger, what go through your day. What made you mad? Was it your spouse, like leaving the mess, not putting the dishes in, not honoring you in whatever way you feel is important, right? So name it, claim it. Where in the body are you feeling the tension? Because there always is a place, clenching your jaw, the shoulders, the fists, holding on tight, insomnia, bowel and bladder problems. And then the taming is finding oasis moments, I call them 1-minute meditations, like shut the whole house, put everything away, get your yoga mat, put a blanket on the floor, a pillow. I call it creating a Zen den, like just these pockets of reprieve in your daily life, sitting in your car, doing a 1-minute deep breathing, a progressive muscle relaxation. So anything that'll physically help you calm down. And then the reframing, is there another way for me to look at it? Like if you felt slighted with somebody, what is the most generous interpretation of the situation? How can I understand, put myself in the other person's shoes? Is there some empathy that I need to have? Can I understand them better? The reframing, is there a positive twist? Is there a silver lining? And then I say to patients sometimes, maybe there isn't. Maybe there is no positive twist. And something I learned from my Eastern upbringing, my parents would always say when I was in these situations where I just felt so frustrated and I couldn't find the silver lining, they would say to me, is this a problem to be solved or a truth to be accepted? And that just has to like sit with you because you're like, damn, not every problem is meant to be solved. Not every problem has a solution, right? And I think so much in the West, like I was born and raised in the United States. My parents are from Asia and India, and their whole, like, it's a very different philosophy of acceptance. In the West, we equate acceptance with resignation and giving up. But surrender also has a positive connotation, right? Like at some points in your life, you have to surrender to something, the universe, nature, higher power, whatever you want to say.
What does healthy pride look like? And how can women claim healthy pride? How can we bring that into our lives?
Healthy pride is an intrinsic sense of self-worth that says that I have worth and value simply because I exist. Full stop, right? My worth, my value is not dependent on achievement, on how I look, what I produce, how I perform. And there's a lot of science and data behind the exercise and practice of self-compassion, which is mindful observation of the negative thoughts in your head. A lot of women can relate to this to say, my entire life I have been socialized and groomed to provide and protect and nurture other people. And I'm very hard on myself and very critical. So in self-compassion, and this is based on the work of Dr. Kristen Neff, which is mindful observation of the negative thoughts, and then having a certain amount of acceptance, of recognition of your own humanity, common humanity. Am I the first one who's messed up? Am I the only one who's ever made a mistake? Because we know that shame is so dangerous and it is a slippery slope to pessimism and depression. Self-compassion says, I'm recognizing, I'm beating myself up, I'm having these thoughts, I'm less than. And in the book, I give people a chart of how to actually reframe the negative statement. I'm a loser to I'm deserving. I made a mistake as opposed to I'm a bad person, to not character assassinate.
So you also talk about proficiency. Another one of your P's, building skills and mastery. Why is learning something new? Well, we know it's good for the brain. We know that to be true, many, many studies, but why is that so important to our overall sense of optimism?
Proficiency is based on the idea of self-efficacy, and that is a belief and a confidence in your own abilities. And we see that your success is very much tied to your belief in your abilities. People who believe in themselves, as optimists do, they believe that they will be capable. I always say to be just slightly delusional, right? Just slightly, just like 5%, right? A lot of women were taught, I'm not good in math, I'm not good in sciences. But if you say to yourself, I am capable, or at least, I don't know if I'm capable, but I'm going to try, that makes the biggest difference. And that is a bigger predictor than your abilities itself. You might have two people who have equal amounts, but the person who's going to do better is the person who says, yeah, I can do it, I'm capable.
I think it's fear. Fear really is a very powerful emotion and feeling. It can really stop you. I mean, you could be heading in that direction, in this positive direction, when all of a sudden fear will take over and could stop you in your tracks. Fear of rejection is a big one.
And like failure and being realistic about, okay, well, what is the cost? What is it that I'm afraid of losing? Is it losing face? Is it losing money? Is it losing time? Right? So get clear. If none of these are the issue, then what is it? Because I think a lot of times people are just afraid of putting themselves out there. Like, I don't want to make a fool of myself. What are other people going to think?
People in this age group maybe are retiring or have, and so losing their network of work friends, their social world could be becoming smaller, could be getting a lot smaller. And that really creates all kinds of other issues. I mean, frailty is a really big focal point of mine at the moment. And it's very much tied into the psychological aspect, which is having your world shrink socially. Then you stop going out, you stop maybe wanting to travel as much. And so let's talk about what you call another P, your people practice.
I would say that the quality of your life depends on the quality of your relationships. And we know that when we look at people in their 50s and look at their social life, we can predict what their life is going to look like in their 80s, what their health, physical health, mental health, and frailty will look like. How robust is their social network? How much effort do they put in staying in touch with people? Do they have a community? And one thing that I learned relatively recently was that community is not the same thing as friendship. You don't have to like the people that you're in community with, right? Like, you can have this weekly mahjong game or pickleball game with people that who are activity partners. And I talk about in the book the different levels and the different types of relationships, right? Like, these are people that you have shared hobbies with and you can spend time with, you can go hiking with, you can walk your dogs with. They don't have to be the people that you experience the deepest friendship with. And a lot of people will say, I only have one or two best friends and they live in different parts of the country and I only see them like once a year. That's fine. But I would say, in addition, layer in different levels of what I call micro connections, which I think had been lost during the pandemic, for example, where people, those built in layers every day, walking outside, the barista, the dog walker, your doorman, wherever it is, neighbors that you would see on the street, when you go to a store, like now that we have all these conveniences, you never have to leave your house. And that is really detrimental. If you can do all your food shopping, your retail stuff, movies, everything, and you can work from home remotely, you never have to see another human being again. And the problem is where we're heading as a society, especially with AI, is we're trying to make our life frictionless, but it is the friction in that results in beauty in every aspect, like whether it's tearing muscles and bones just enough to signal through hard work, not trying to injure yourself, but obviously with supervision, with guidance, with knowledge, through practice. We create micro tears in everything that we do in order to get better, right? Like, that's how the muscle will grow. And we need to signal that we are still capable of doing hard things, whether it's signaling the body or signaling the mind, and to continue to create load. And one of the things that we're seeing is that when people are offloading their cognitive tasks or offloading friendship even, right? We know a lot of young people, they say 25% of young people are using AI chatbots as a form of therapy, as a form of loneliness or whatever. We know that screen time in older adults, it's like 65 plus, are spending 8.5, 9 hours a day combined with TV and screens. So a lot of people above the age of 65, I don't know if it's like maybe 25 to 30%, but the number gets larger the older you get, above 65, the number of people that are living alone. So if you're living alone and you're not going out of your way and you have the screens on in the background that seem to feel they're the equivalent of like cotton candy or fast food for our mind and for our relationships, then we're getting what feels like social snacking, but it's not quite the main meal. The advice that I would give is absolutely keep connected to your friends that live all over the country. Those deep, deep, deep friendships that knew you in all of your different life, decades, and eras. That is a feeling of being seen and being held, which is really important. But also layer in the talk to that neighbor that annoys the crap out of you that you would never be friends with. When you go out to throw your garbage, how are you? Make eye contact, right?
I saw a study just recently about how speaking to strangers, like in the store, it's good for both people. It's for you and the other person. But this is a really great time to put in, I hope you don't mind, a little plug for the Bone Health and Osteoporosis Foundation, Be Bone Strong walking clubs. To your point, we have seen more loneliness, social isolation, of all age groups, but now, my focus is more on people in midlife and beyond. And I'm also really focused on bone health And I've been associated with the Bone Health and Osteoporosis Foundation, BHOF, for about 11 years. I'm a special advisor and I oversee our marathon teams, recognizing this issue, also people not moving enough and being socially isolated. So I said, well, let's start a walking club. But this is how it's different. It's micro, meaning it's in your neighborhood. We want people to be able to walk 2 blocks to the start, not have to drive 2 miles to the start. We've started quite a few, and now it's rolling out across the country. And we have a playbook to tell you how to start your neighborhood walking club. And no walker ever walks alone. That's the whole point of it. You always have somebody with you. We have different pace groups. So for you all listening in, please email me at agebetterpodcast@gmail.com. I will send you more information about starting one in your neighborhood. Okay, well, thank you for that time to plug our little walking club, which is really, it's just bringing me so much joy, Dr. Sue. I can't even begin to tell you. So much joy. But getting back to the alone practice, what is the difference between being lonely and being comfortably alone?
There's a lot of disappointment in relationships. The families are estranged. People are not talking to their parents, to their kids. And it's interesting because in the last 5 to 7 years, people say, oh my God, is it because we have this more therapy speak where people are like all of a sudden realizing or recognizing trauma and trying to get their parents or family members into therapy? Is it the therapy language is making people want to cut off and set boundaries? So there are these changes in our society, some good in recognizing hurt, but some maybe too extreme where we're cutting off people. What's in the middle, which is recognizing the hurt, but also trying in some forms to maintain community. It's not easy.
No.
But aloneness, going back to your question about aloneness. So aloneness is the intentional, deliberate appreciation of your own company, right? It is not the same thing as loneliness, because loneliness is a subjective quality, a mismatch between the social life you want and the social life you have. Sometimes you can be in a room full of people and surrounded by friends and family and not feel seen or understood by anybody or not feel like anyone has your back. So loneliness is craving to be understood, to be wanted, to be needed, to be heard, to be liked, to be in community, to feel chosen, to feel wanted, to feel important, to feel like you matter, to feel like you're not a burden to anybody. And in a aloneness practice, I really highly encourage people to say, develop one. Even though you may say, wait, it sounds like you're telling me 2 contradictory pieces of information. Which one do you want me to do? You want me to be alone and enjoy it, or you want me to be with other people? And the answer is both. I want you to do both, because so many people are so afraid to be alone that they will be in the wrong relationship. I always say I have this idea that I'd rather be alone for the right reasons than to be in a relationship for the wrong ones. I like this idea of dating yourself. Like, I'm happily married, but I like to date myself sometimes, where I am going someplace at a cafe, enjoying a sandwich, taking a book, maybe not doing anything, maybe going for a walk, and just really appreciating, cultivating such a rich internal life. You don't always have to be entertained. We don't always have to be scrolling, going for a walk, enjoying a meal, savoring it. The coffee in the morning. They say women love nothing. Their number one hobby, pastime for most women is just drinking coffee in peace.
So for the woman listening right now who might be feeling stuck, overwhelmed by life, by everything, unsure about what her next chapter should really look like, or we talked about purpose and everything else, but is there one small practical optimism exercise that you think she should do like right now, just to kind of get her started?
I would say 2 things. One is something called behavioral activation, which is putting the cart before the horse. You don't have to be ready, like act as if. What would you do if you were that person, right? So a lot of times we want big changes and we want them to last forever. And I would say just take it one day at a time. Dale Carnegie's book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, he talks about living in day-tight compartments. So think of a Ziploc bag. One day is one small Ziploc bag, and that's it. You have this grand plan to whatever, exercise and be fit and run a marathon. Well, just put your sneakers on and get out the house today, right? And then restart it. Let the clock restart every 24 hours so you don't feel like this heaviness of having to be consistent every single day. Like every single day is a new day, a new chapter. If you fell off the horse, you can get back on it. You have tomorrow. That's what tomorrow is for. So this idea of behavioral activation, the cart before the horse, act as if. The second thing I would say is in that last chapter of the last 8th pillar, practicing healthy habits, I talk about 4 healthy habits that anyone can get started today, but I think that they give you the most bang for your buck psychologically, but then they also help you develop the strength to develop it to create any other habits you want. And the 4 M's of mental health are movement, mastery, mindfulness, and meaningful engagement. And I think your walking club probably hits most, if not all. Anything that you can do, maybe for you, it might be a yoga class, or it might be pottery with friends, or whatever it might be, but getting better at something with other people that allows you to focus and be in the zone. And if you can get movement out of it, or maybe movement on the way to it, like you would have checked off all your boxes. But make it a practice, the 4 M's. And you can put it in your phone, you could put it on your fridge, and populate your calendar to say, what meaningful engagement am I going to make a 10-minute call to a friend on my way home? Am I seeing somebody face to face? Am I doing the walking club this week? So every week, movement, mastery, meaningful engagement, and mindfulness.
Thank you so much for that. Everyone, Practical Optimism. It's a book you really, really must get. You must read this book. There's so much more for you to learn from Dr. Sue Varma. And again, the link will be in the show notes, everyone, so definitely check that out. Dr. Sue, please, before you go, before we wind down, just tell us, what does aging better mean to you?
Aging better means to me is developing a set of habits that will carry me through life. I think that at midlife, you realize, oh, wow, my time is limited. So aging better means taking very good, conscious, deliberate care of my nutrition and the time that I spend in my gym, the time that I spend with my family and friends, and also saying no to things that don't serve me anymore.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your joining me today. Dr. Sue Varma, thank you.
Thank you. It was such a treat talking to you, Barbara.
And everyone, thank you for tuning in. See you next week. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode of Age Better Podcast, please do a few things. First, share it with all your friends and family. Then, subscribe to Age Better wherever you listen to podcasts, including YouTube, so you never miss a single episode. Finally, if you have ideas for topics you want me to cover in a future episode of Age Better, send an email to agebetterpodcast@gmail.com or reach out to me on social media. Until next time, remember this: we can't control getting older, but we can control how we do it. Talk to you soon. Age Better Podcast is a proud member of the Sound Advice Network. Sound Advice, women's voices amplified.